maybe she leaked it, and just so she could find out who her loyal subjects were, and now she's going through and destroying everyone that was happy about it.
Hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel. We're a podcast about anime, video games, entertainment, life, a little bit of everything in between. I'm your host, as always, Joe, and with me, the gentleman who's still celebrating Mardi Gras all year round. Nick, how's it going?
Pretty good, yeah. If you just, you know, people are like, you should start the party, and I'm like, I can't, and they're like, why? And I was like, because I never stopped. Um, that's sort of
Well, I see
the
you going through your circuit. You're out of beads. Now you got to work for him now. And so Austin tonight in Austin, Texas, just look out for Nick. He'll be working for those beads.
always working for those beats. Um,
There you go,
so
podcast.
apparently,
Title.
I did hear from somebody that is in Louisiana that they actually had to cancel Mardi Gras wherever they were because the winds were too high. The float insurance was only rated to 30 miles an hour, and the wind gusts in the area were going to get up to 40 miles an hour. So the insurance was like, we're not paying if anything happens. And so the float people were like, okay, well, no floats. So they had to cancel at least, I don't know how much of Mardi Gras. He said they canceled Mardi Gras. I guess the parade part of it or whatever got canceled. So anyway, that's the news from somewhere in Louisiana.
All right. Well, let's just get straight to the gaming news. What do you got for us, Nick?
Um, there's a lot of stuff. A lot of little things. So Battlefield 6, I didn't even really read about this very much, but apparently Battlefield 6 playtest footage leaked online. And that's kind of the long and short of it, I guess. So that happened. And I don't know how much of it is got leaked or whatever, but yeah, I mean, you got to know they're making it. Probably didn't want to get it leaked out like that. But yeah, this is Battlefield. They started taking a break from it, right? Because I know they were kind of trying to do it like every year, every other year. But did they end up taking a break on it?
Yeah, last Battlefield was it 2042, and that was in 2024. Um, and that was yeah. Uh, I know, or at least that was the last. I'm sorry, that was the last like DLC for
Okay,
it. So because yeah, that was the 2020 2042 came out in uh '01. No, 2021. I'm sorry, 2021. And
right.
that one, but a lot of people mixed reception on that. It came out kind of a little bit broken, a little bit weird, and it wasn't the usual experience, if I remember correctly. So it, like,
I kind of
so
remember,
this
yeah,
kind
there
of,
being people being kind of mad about it being what it was.
and so this is them kind of going back to their roots. Hopefully, should make a lot of more Battlefield people happy. Uh, I not really big multiplayer, shooter fan, so when it comes to this, like I don't play the Battlefield games. So I really don't know too much else about it. I just remember when it came out, a lot of hype behind the marketing. Then all of a sudden, the reality of it set in, and it still went on for a while. Like they came out with a bunch of DLC stuff, so
Yeah.
or extra expansion stuff. So I mean, it's bound to happen. It's just people breaking NDAs, and uh, I mean, first impressions, kind of mixed, I guess, is what it seems like from what I've seen. So
Yeah. I mean, I
it's
do.
not final footage. So what do you expect?
Yeah, it's play tests and stuff like that. And I mean, I always just think about how I mean, it's hard to tell whether they're serious or whatever. But the Naughty Dog um, people, the developers of The Last of Us, I just remember how they were like, yeah, we thought the game was really not very good. I mean, it was fine, but it really wasn't very good until I think they said like 6 months before it came out, or maybe it was even less than that. But it was like a very short amount of time before it was like actually released, not said to be released, but like actually released. before they were like, okay, this is a good game now. So if it was supposed to come out, playtest footage, what is it, March now? If it's supposed to come out in September, I guess that is about 6 months. So, you know, there's still a lot of things that need to be buttoned up, probably, even if they're playtesting it. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to judge at this point. Just kind of, I don't know, like, I don't know what you do about this, all this leaked stuff, man. If it just feel like every time I turn around, something's getting leaked. But I guess it's just the world that we live in.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you have to. There's what's the answer? I mean, have different groups play test different builds, and then if something leaks, you know what group that came from, and you can narrow it down. I guess. I mean, it's I can't remember who did that. I think it was Sega. Sega might have done that with, I think it was the Saturn or something like that, or maybe it was the Dreamcast. But they had leaked different concept images, or like
Uh,
they showed prospective buyers different concept builds of the unit, and then when a unit got, like, the image got leaked to like magazine kind of stuff, they're like, yeah, it's like, we obviously know who leaked it because we gave different concept art essentially for the unit to different people, and they knew who they could trust and who they couldn't. But you can't really do that now, especially with just, you know, I could, it's too difficult to do a vertical slice like this. But I guess the big takeaway though is they're going back to, the traditional form of a Battlefield game,
right.
and I think people are just thirsty for it now. They really want that. It's kind of remembered well, rose tinted glasses. But I mean, they usually rated like pretty, like Battlefield 5 was something like in the 80s or something like that. Like, like set high 70s, lower 80 percentile.
I see.
So a lot of people uh really did like that, and then when they went to 2042, a lot of people were just, it was just too different. They weren't expecting it. Now if they go back, you might be able to recapture that. Plus also some people might be getting tired of, the Call of Duty formula. So I don't know. Just I hope it's fun. I hope it brings people something what they're looking for. It's always good to have an extra new game to play. Theoretically, if anyone can really, have longevity, it should be a powerhouse like them. But
Because yeah, it's EA,
uh,
right?
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
and
So
it used to be running off the Dice engine. I'm not sure if they're doing Dice or not. Still, I haven't looked too much into Battlefield 6 at all. So, uh, yeah, everyone seems to be going to Unreal lately. But I mean, that was always one of the things. Is like, okay, EA Battlefield, the Dice is what, engines where it's at. Uh, I'm still forever like in like the peak Battlefield was always Bad Company for me. Bad Company and Bad Company 2.
mhm.
Uh, it was a smaller game. It had a great campaign, and that's why I was there for it. It was such a stupid campaign. It was really great. So if you haven't, I would say it's even worth going back to. It's probably on Game Pass or something. I haven't checked. But if you ever get a chance to, do check it out. Really fun story. Just Battlefield Bad Company 1. The story was just a couple guys in the desert conflict, come across essentially like something equivalent to like Saddam Hussein's gold stash, and then it's them trying to leave the battlefield, like trying to survive out on their own. And then you had the destructible environments and stuff like that. So their dialogue was super funny. You had the one guy who was like essentially toting redneck. He's like, "I'm gonna buy a Truckosaurus Rex" or something like that. Like just it was silly, but it was a good time for sure. Early 360 days, or at least it was in 360 era. So, all right. What else you got for us for the news, man?
Looks like Discord is looking into. They're exploring the idea of doing an IPO, which is an initial public offering. Basically, they are looking into going public and having stock in their company. Is what that means. Is you can buy stock. The other part of this is that um, people seem to be worried, because they're always worried, but some people are worried about Discord having a lot of third party ads. That was like the first thing, I guess, that came up. Because so far, there really aren't any ads in it. Which has been really nice. They do kind of are that they kind of always are pushing Nitro and stuff. But more, but like really there's not too much that's very disruptive about them, and the usage of it. So I kind of see the fears. I think it's interesting. I've always wondered like how Discord makes money, um, because you know there's not really a lot of avenues for them to, from what I can see. So it is going to be. I kind of figured that they were probably a little ways away from an IPO. I would have thought they would have put ads in the thing and tried to make a bunch of money off of it before doing an IPO to show, hey, this is how we're profitable. This is how we're making money. This is how we're, this is why you should buy our stock because we're doing all these things. Um, so I don't know. That's kind of just how I think about it. But yeah, it'll almost certainly change things, whether it's for the good or for the bad, remains to be seen. But I think most people that use Discord and video gamers in general are probably leaning toward the bad because we tend to. But anyway,
All right, yeah. I mean, uh, it's not going to be the end of the world. I know people were really upset when Reddit went public, or they were selling. So
yeah, because the guy
there's
that
huge.
owns Reddit now is really like, he's like a dude that he just doesn't give a crap. I mean, about what it is. He's just like, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know enough about it, but I've just watched Moist Critical, gosh, Penguin Zero, whatever the freak he goes by. Watched one of his videos on it, and it was kind of doom and gloom about it. But yeah, I don't really have a good opinion on it, but I just know that that guy seems to be sort of out of touch with the kind of people that use Reddit.
All right, well, let's look forward to the new thing that replaces Discord, I guess.
Yeah, I mean the thing too about Discord is that it is really, I mean, it is really good. Like it does a lot of different things, and it's pulling in communities that are everywhere, not just on video games. So yeah, it is kind of, if it goes bad, I guess something else will come up to replace it. But yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, what's next, man? What do you got?
So this is an article I didn't have time to finish reading, but um, there's gonna be there's talks about there being another Batman movie, but it's a Batman. It's going to be called Batman Revolution, and instead of an I, it's a question mark. So it's about the Riddler. But the weird thing about this is that it's a sequel to the 1989 Batman. So it takes place before the events of Batman Returns, which I think came out in 91 or 92, somewhere in there. So that's an interesting choice, I thought. And so, yeah, so I don't know anything else about it, but it's definitely a weird idea that has piqued my interest.
Yeah, I remember. What was it the I recently saw something talking about how uh what was it Jack Nicholson when in the first Batman they were supposed to he was kind of hemming and hawing about doing the Joker, and Robin Williams wanted to do the Joker. So they end up, but the first choice was always Nicholson. So in order to get him off the fence, they gave an offer to Robin Williams, and Robin Williams was interested. And then they say, "Hey, he's interested," and that's what like they're like, we gave you an option, but we're gonna actually take it away from you now." Uh, and so it was kind of like a bittersweet. Like you can see old interviews with Robin Williams talking about like, yeah, it just kind of it's the nature of the beast. And then apparently he was uh, later on when they were in discussions about doing the Riddler for Batman Forever, and it was undetermined at the time whether or not it was going to be Tim Burton doing that or Joe Schumacher. Like it was going to be, I think Michael Keaton. He was supposed to be like he wanted to do it, but he had to have certain amount of certain royalties and percentages and stuff like that. And Robin Williams wanted to do the same, like kind of same thing, but he was afraid. I think the rumor was he was afraid that he overextended himself, but his agency was like, no, no, we got it. There, who else are they gonna pick? You know, like we can also ask for like the toy royalties and stuff like that.
Uh,
Um, yeah, and then it was just a massive cluster because the one of the female leads was supposed to be she was the returning one of the returning lady from Tim Burton's Batman. I can't remember her name now, but anyways, she said, "I'll do it if Keaton's in it." And then when Keaton wasn't in it, then they took her out. So it's just one of those like the de-evolution of what could have been Tim Burton's Batman, which I think it was Batman Continue was originally the
yeah,
concept name.
I think that's what this
Um,
article said, that there was one. Maybe okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so but it's a neat little, like what if scenario. Like what if Burton got to make his, because rumor being it like it might have been a more of a kind of a darker backstory or like a little bit filling in of how he became the Batman, which would then maybe have changed the timeline, our timeline, because uh Christopher Nolan wouldn't have made Batman Begins if that story had already been kind of told in a certain way.
Mm.
So it's like it would have rippled throughout a little bit if Tim Burton got to make his third film. So that's kind of a fun little thing. I recommend looking into it if you guys are interested. I honestly don't remember how I stumbled across it, but it just happened to come into uh, the algorithm for me like about a month ago, and so it kind of relevant. I mean, maybe word on the wind was like already talking about this or something like that, and some other people more in tune with the events were like, hey, maybe this will make good content, or it just happened to be all coincidental. But yeah, all right. I'm kind of curious about it. I mean, because right now, who do they have for the Batman? It's
I mean, well, that mean that would mean they have two different Batman franchises going at the
yeah,
same time. I
and
unless the next the Batman movie is going to be this, but I don't think that it is. So maybe
and
they're
are they
looking
going
to
to kill?
reboot it already.
Well, I know they were supposed to be rebooting the whole like DC universe. So are they going to just run the Batman series out, reboot with this one, and then continue on with that? I don't know. The DC universe's film universe is really messy. So good luck.
It will probably be wrong. Whatever happens, it will probably be wrong.
All right. What else you got for us, man?
Um, uh, some of these things are probably just kind of more blurbs, but it looks like about I think Neil Druckmann came on somewhere and on some podcast or interview and was like, "Yeah, The Last of Us Part 3 is probably not going to happen." So I thought that was good, honestly. Not because I don't really want another Last of Us or whatever, but I think it's good that when studios um, are willing to turn down massive amounts of money because it is creatively the wrong choice. And I think they've probably had enough of The Last of Us. There's probably enough of The Last of Us, and now I'm just glad that they're gonna move on to something else. So, yeah, that was. I mean, I think he was just like, it's probably not gonna happen, and that's what the headline is. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think the Polygon article had it in quotes like "Don't bet on it."
right.
Oh, I felt it being weird that in The Last of Us, the fact that they named it Part Two instead of just Number Two or something like that, which always made it feel like they were going to make a third. I was not a fan of two, story wise, and I felt it was way too long, and it just it was messy. I think, yeah,
Yeah,
I feel that.
yeah.
Yeah, have you played the sequel?
No, I've not. But I did. I have heard people talk about it, and what a lot of people say is like it was like it's technically good that, but they didn't really, but they there was like no spark. Is it was sort of the thing that they were coming away with, was like they were like, I didn't really like it, but when I look at it objectively, I'm like, well, the combat is good, and then this is good, and then this is good, and it's all like well put together. But they're just like, but they just didn't for whatever reason they just didn't like it as much as I guess they thought they should have or something.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I know. A lot. There was a lot of murmuring about the casting of Abby in the series, the TV show for The Last of Us, the second season, and because Abby looks very different than she does in the game.
She's like really buff in the game, and she's kind of more normal. Like
Very much.
yeah,
And Neil Druckmann had to say, like, we're hiring based off talent, but I'm like, yes, but you're kind of you had this envisioned thing, and then you're kind of, you double down on it when people were very upset with it in the game because they thought it was a very odd character design choice. And now
mm,
that the show's coming out, you're more or less pandering to the masses because you can find an actor who has a more suitable build, but also has decent acting chops. There's a lot of actors out there, you know.
there's a lot
It's
of
a big
out of
world.
work actresses.
So
Yeah,
yeah, so you can most definitely make it work, but I think it's the fact that it's quick, easy, and it's profitable to have someone more feminine is in
well,
this day and age.
yes, okay. Like to me, it has to do with when we made the game, we had the power, but now that someone is making the TV show, they have the power, and they are saying they want it this way. That's but he can't say that because he can't throw the studio that's making it or HBO or whatever WB, they can't throw them under the bus. So he has to go, well, we're doing it because of other reasons. When really I think it's like I just think it's like we had the power to do it this way. We wanted to do it that way on the game, and Sony was like, cool, that's fine. We don't really care. It's all good. And now that all that stuff is out of our hands, and we're not movie makers, we're not TV show makers, we're video game makers. Somebody else is doing that other part, and they're doing it their way. But since I'm the freaking front man, I guess I have to like eat crow while this is happening. But I don't know. That's what I
Yeah.
see.
I never actually watched the entire series. I only watched like episode one of the season one of The Last of Us because I played the games and I didn't have HBO and I wasn't gonna bother hunting down, trying to like torrent them or anything like that. So I thought it followed the vibe pretty well. And though Pedro Pascal being like the front man, like he's a good actor. I just don't think he's a good Joel.
Mm.
Um, and but at the same time, because of that series, we got that the SNL skit for Mario Kart,
Yeah.
which is with Pedro Pascal. That's probably still one of my favorite and most recent memory for SNL bits.
Yeah.
So, yeah, make that one happen. But yes, all right. Well, it's fine that they're not making a third. I think they will. I think maybe just not. I think they're just tempering expectations because a lot of people are like, "Oh, they're coming out with the show. It'd be a good time to start coming out with the new game." And I'm like, "Well, they made five Uncharted games,
Yeah.
so it's not out of the realm for them to make a third The Last of Us."
I mean, and
Uh,
Sony probably would order a new Last of Us, but they probably want to let that. I mean, because the new style, because they only made two of the new God of War games. Everyone was kind of expecting a trilogy out of that, and then they were like, and whenever they're coming out with God of War Ragnarok, they're like, yeah, this is going to close up that storyline, and somebody might make other games, but the main thing that we're doing here is going to be done after Ragnarok. And I think there was an interview where they were like, yeah, we didn't want, I mean, like when you look at it, we're talking about minimum 3 years on each of those games. And if you're working there, it's 9 years of your career. A lot of people in those higher level positions are kind of like, I don't really want us to work on one game for literally, half or a third of my high level part of my career. It's just I just want to do something else, So I kind of think that's like the new way of thinking about things, if I had to guess. But yeah, I mean, eventually Sony's going to fall in hard times or something, or they're going to want to just go press the money button and they'll make a Last of Us 3 and it'll sell like hotcakes because of the name. But for now, I guess
well,
they're
I mean,
shelving it.
Naughty Dog is working on that new IP though, so that's also the other thing.
Yeah.
The intergalactic, person with the laser sword.
Yeah.
Uh,
Looks
so
cool.
all right,
I
yeah,
don't really know what's gonna
uh,
happen though. But yeah.
for sure. I mean, but so it makes sense that uh, The Last of Us Part Three wouldn't be in the works for another handful of years because Intergalactic doesn't even have a date yet. So at earliest,
Or gameplay.
2026.
It just has a nice
Yeah,
CG animated trailer.
yeah. So yeah, we're looking at least for the last yeah if The Last of Us Part Three would start production in a year or two, probably two, and it's like so you probably won't see that game released for 4 to 5 years. Yeah, so I mean that's fine. It's just to let people know so they don't keep on. I also would let people know like, hey, I made something good. Don't expect it to come the next one to come out right away because we got other things to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, that would also help cause stop causing burnout, or fatigue of a property. Take a step away. Uh, that makes sense. And I also just because I don't think we mentioned it, but I thought last week or the week before there was a rumor mill going around with God of War because they were supposed to be hitting up the Egyptian pantheon. So that was
Oh, yeah, they kind of cuz they do kind of play with that, right? Don't they kind
in
of
the first in the remake they first make they mention it. They mention they show items. But I also think they actually show a Japanese item or two in like one of the in the first game. I still haven't finished the second one. So
mm,
that's actually a
shame.
glaring hole in my yeah, I know, right? It's just like I need to finish the second one. There's just so many other things that are taking place and it's just like God of War Ragnarok is just kind of I missed that window
Mm.
and now
Oh,
I'm just
the
like
Zeitgeist window. Yeah,
yeah.
I feel like that game could probably be just something that you use as a palate cleanser where you have your like hardcore game and you play that first and then you're like, man, I got like 30 minutes before I have to stop or go to bed or whatever. I'll just kill a couple things and get one more little section of the map on God of War and then go to bed. So I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, we're almost done with the news. It looks like we have a few more bits, so why don't you continue on?
Yeah, so there's apparently there is a new Suikoden anime and game in the works. So the remake of or the remaster of of Suikoden 2 just came out recently. So this news, I don't think there's any trailer or anything like that. Just they're just saying, hey, we're making anime and game of Suikoden. So um yeah.
Yeah, what I read, so the remaster of 1 and 2 is a bundle. Just came out, I believe, as of a recording yesterday. It's like $50.
Mm,
I think it's on Steam and PlayStation and probably other platforms. Wouldn't be surprised if it's on Switch or not. Uh, but anyways, classic games. Love the soundtracks. Great storyline. It's one of those things that I highly recommend playing with a guide because there's 108 characters,
oh
stars of
yeah.
destiny as they call them, some of which you cannot really find without a proper guide. But it was one of those games that early on it was awesome because you were able to. There are PlayStation One games, and you can take your save data from one to two, and it saved certain things like certain key player stats because you're playing as a brand new protagonist. And I think the castle might have carried over. It's been so long. And then when they made three was a PS2 game, and then you were able to use the adapter to bring your PS1 memory card over, transfer that save data, and get certain extra bits for the for the Scoot 3 game. And I think they even did that one step further with Tactics, I believe. I don't remember if they did anything with 4. I can't remember, but anyways, uh, 1 and 2 great games. Really like the soundtrack, an amazing soundtrack, and just overall, just cool experience. Uh, I want to play this really bad. I have to find the time,
I
especially
mean, they're
since
pretty
they
long games, right?
they are epically long, but they're probably one of my favorite RPGs, especially of the PS1 era. So for sure, I think it's awesome that they're getting this treatment. I also still like the fact that they're keeping this art style, not necessarily doing a huge overhaul or anything like that. I always felt that a lot of these old RPGs should stick, especially PS1 era, would just do better if they had clean, awesome animated sprites or like just cell shaded look, something like the stuff they did for like Hades, just the way the character models look, because that would be a more like I think that fits tonally better with other things. Like I always wanted Final Fantasy VII to have a sprite remake or something like that instead of going, because they took them so long to come out with a remake for seven, and it's been rumored for so long before they finally did come out with it
Yeah.
that I was just like, no, dude, instead of making it full 3D, full blah blah blah, just make it fully like sprite animated, just make it look really clean, really nice. You can do this, and it would take a lot less time. I mean, don't get me wrong, the new stuff, it looks amazing. Blender sure still seems to love the hell out of the new stuff, but the I'm still a fan of this old 2D art, 2D sprites. So yeah. All right. Well, anyways, play Suikoden. Suikoden, the anime is supposed to be, from what I read, was supposed to be based off of Suikoden 2, which is neat. And not much else was mentioned about the game that I saw of note. So I'm not really as interested in the new game,
Mm.
but for them to come out with the anime, so long as it's appropriately budgeted, I am actually pretty excited about that. So
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering who is going to be in charge of who's developing both the anime and the game. That'll kind of tell us a lot about the quality, I think.
for sure. All right. What else you got for us?
Okay, so this is just something I saw that I thought was kind of interesting. The RoboCop video game called RoboCop Unfinished Business. A trailer for it just came out. I don't know how many times this has been announced or whatever, but I just saw it. Apparently, it's going to be released in summer 2025. Um, it's a sequel to RoboCop Rogue something. I forget. There's
Rogue
another
City.
game. Say again.
Rogue Rogue City, the one that just came out last year.
Right, right. I knew it was pretty recent, but the reason why this one caught my eye is because it does look pretty all right. But it looks to me like RoboCop plus the 2012 version of Dread, that movie Dread that came out, because it's like got like you're doing your RoboCop and you're going through an apartment building, killing a bunch of bad guys, but not like a regular apartment building, like a mega tower apartment building of the future. So it's literally like kind of ripped out of that. I think a lot of the other stuff with the story is probably gonna be different, obviously, but whenever I saw that, I was like, okay, that's cool, because I liked Dread 2012. It was super fun. It's a nice tight story that has a lot of good merits, and I think it's pretty well regarded overall. So I was like, okay, that's good material to copy from, because RoboCop obviously not the same as Dread, but also not that crazy different. So I was like, all right, I like where their heads at. I like kind of what they're going for. So it caught my eye, and I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, that 2012 Dread was pretty awesome for just being a simple action movie. I still preferred the uh, it wasn't Malaysian, but the Indonesian version of it the year before, which was the Raid. You
Oh
know,
yeah, the raid is really good. God.
the Raid Redemption. It was essentially the Raid Redemption was amazing, and then all of a sudden this Dread comes out. I'm like, oh, this is just cyberpunk version of that, and not as I mean, still good, but nowhere near as good as action scenes, but still pretty stylish. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. The raid is just. I mean, yeah. I still have never seen the raid 2. I've started it up like a bunch of times, and just I can never get far enough to really get into it. I've gotten to the scene in the raid 2 where it's early, where he fights everybody in the mud at the prison. But I need to watch it anyway. Yeah.
I still recommend the Raid as almost a beginner's masterclass for cinematography for fight scenes,
Yes.
because they do a really good job of keeping you uh, locked on to the people and giving you better spatial awareness, opposed to at the time what was more popular with like the Marvel films, which is doing a lot of hard cuts, and especially with the or even other, quote unquote real fight scenes from like the Bourne series or something like that, where they do a lot of jump cuts and hard angles. But this one really did flow with the fights, gave you an understanding where people were in the room, and it was just the choreography was really awesome.
Yeah.
So highly recommend the Raid Redemption. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that they don't really cut as much in that, and it's like it's a weird thing, but it makes you feel like it just makes it feel like you're watching something real, even if it's like, well, that angle is not the best for this particular punch, but it's like, yeah, but they didn't cut, so that they're like really I mean, they are really choreographed, but they are actually closer to actually fighting instead of being like, okay, you're going to start with your fist here and then, all right, action and then punch. And because, like,
It
you,
feels just good to watch.
yeah,
It's like the hallway scene from Old Boy. Like,
yes,
that's
yes.
it's just
I was
very
thinking of
well
that.
done.
Of course, I was thinking of that. Anyway, so yeah, so there's that. So I'm going to keep my eye out and probably forget about this game, but hopefully not. Other two things, just short. This one's almost a correction. But Kathleen Kennedy
It
came out and was like, "I'm not retiring," or that she has no plans to retire or whatever. I think I think somebody probably heard and said something they weren't supposed to say, and she probably is going to, but for other reasons, she's got to say she's not.
it
But anyway, that's the official is that she is not retiring. So I don't take back anything I said. I don't care.
My 2 cents on that is simple. It's one is, she probably is upset because she wanted to announce it on her terms,
Oh yeah.
and the second part is she probably is really upset because so many people were happy that she was leaving. So now the question is, will she still leave, or will she stick around to spite everyone? And she's like, "I'm gonna run this franchise into the ground until I'm dead," which is very, very big possibility. But chances are they're just waiting. She's gonna wait for the right opportunity to maybe choose her own successor, as it were, and then make a big, celebration, about it or something like that. But to have it leaked out or have it said without her consent, very much I can see like or maybe for investors like, no, 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 I'm sticking around, guys, I'm sticking around, whether you want me or not.
Maybe
Apparently, the internet says no.
maybe she leaked it and just so she could find out who her loyal subjects were, and now she's going through and destroying everyone that was happy about it, and so we're gonna have like a bunch of bodies wash up on
Uh,
the shore.
Well, I would say she would had that power back when, she obtained the franchise, but now that she's already, like, burned up all the goodwill, that's too bad. Alright. Well, hopefully hopefully she's not sticking around for too long. That's all I gotta say.
The only other
Okay.
thing is George Lowe, the voice of Space Ghost, among other things, passed away at the age of 67. I didn't really read too much into it, but I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Space Ghost, and his voice is pretty iconic in that show, if nothing else. So yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to announce that he had passed away.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. He's been sick for a bit. I know the year before, or whatever, MC Chris had tweeted out that he wasn't doing so well, and yeah, it's they as anyone who was early 2000s, late 90s, the whole Adult Swim era really probably any of those after shows like Space Ghost Coast to Coast and stuff like that was affected by just the existence of George Lowe. So yeah, it's a sad thing to see him go, especially so young. In the grand scheme of things, as like
Yeah.
still could have done a lot more out there. So yeah, it's sad to hear, and hopefully uh, the family's doing well, and there's not much else to say, man. Impossible pivot.
Yeah, I've given you two impossible pivots 2 weeks in a row. Sorry.
Yeah, well, end the news on the end the news on the bad news, and then quickly wash over it with the stuff we've been playing. All right, and yeah, so I guess we've talked about this game before. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. There was recently a tournament debacle like a while ago. This has been maybe a few months back. Um, this game is the current big Dragon Ball game, more accessible for most people. It's your standard Dragon Ball fighting game. It's supposed to be, I think, the Budokai like franchise, like the next successor. And I finally got around to giving it a shot. It's been a while since I played a Dragon Ball game. Well, since Fighters, but I didn't really get too much into that one either. But I found that one to be pretty good. This one, the long and short of it is, it's fun. I just didn't really click with me. I mean, I prefer Dragon Ball Z Fighters. This one was the action was there, the cinematic, the flair, but I feel like it was missing a bit of just missing some stuff. It was the when we talk about editing and cuts, they have a lot of the spectacle when you do certain it's very easy to do your special moves, but at the same time, they do a lot of hard cuts. And I played split screen with some friends as well, but it was funny because the camera angles would whip around so much that you couldn't even find out where you were on the screen. So you'd actually just look at your where you were on the split screen. We're like, okay, that's how close they are to me because for some reason the camera whipped around and I'm right next to a cliff, so I can't physically see myself. Uh,
I'm not screen cheating, dude. I'm just trying to figure out where my character is.
yeah, this is I mean, it feels very much more of a pickup party play kind of game. Like you could just random button mash and it felt more comfortable that way. Uh I didn't give it the biggest deep dive that I would try for like a Tekken or something like that. But a Tekken has a certain baseline polish. So
Mm,
this one felt much more a lower barrier to entry, which I think a lot more kids, like would like, or first time or like, anime fighters would enjoy. Just it had your basic story mode. You starting off with literally Dragon Ball Z, Raditz grabbing young Gohan, and that starting the whole story completed. So I'm not sure if it could have went to the Super series. I'm not sure. So I just didn't make it that far. Yeah, that's pretty much. I had a fun time with it. I would recommend it if you found it on the cheap and you're curious. But if you want a better fighting game,
mm.
but Dragon Ball related, pick Fighters. I would say that. But at the same time, once again, I don't play online with a lot of people, so maybe the online group, you look into it. It might be better with Sparking Zero because that's the new hotness.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's kind of the thing
yeah,
is, I mean, Fighters probably still has a lot because it was so popular. But everybody that's on there is going to be really freaking good. So good luck with that. But yeah, maybe more noobs are going to be on the new one.
yeah. All right. Uh, and then to the game that I was forbidden to talk about last time. Uh, but Nick has finally at least completed episode one, which is what I completed. Uh, Dream Core. So, yeah, why don't you take it away, man?
Yes, I in my benevolence, I have decreed that it is now okay to talk about this game. So I didn't realize that this game was episodic. So basically, it looks like there's 5 episodes that they have. When you go to the menu, and they have only released 2 so far, and the other ones have like unlock dates. Um, one basically,
Summer of 2025, winter of 2025, and then it just says 2026.
yeah. So it's like not even like every season. It's like so there is one coming soon, but the next one after that is not until like 6 months from then, and then probably I would assume summer 2026. But I guess they're not confident enough to say that. But yeah, so yeah, this game, um, yeah. So I played through the first level, which is the pools. And then I played, I think I am close to finishing the second level, which is Suburbia. And yeah, as I was playing through this, I was kind of like, I bet this game was kind of frustrating to Joe, um, because I'm a little bit familiar with your playstyle. And I think that what this game is asking you to do or expecting you to do, um, is probably um, would would if you play like I think that you were playing would make it even more boring. Um, I think the game wants to be boring. It's weird. It's a weird thing. I have more to say, but I'm going to stop right there and let you go.
All right. Well, actually, the game is exactly what I expected from it,
Okay.
so it wasn't really that big surprising for me because I've seen I've heard about this game and I've seen other games like it being mentioned. So it was one of those things that I was interested in it from the jump, and I was surprised that you ended up picking it up. So this one, essentially. the gameplay itself, or what to expect from it, is it puts you in. So all it is just tiles and water slide, a couple water slides here and there, and maybe some water on the ground. Your only actions you can do is kind of squat, uh, walk and run, and you have a flashlight button that doesn't do anything at first. Um,
Mhm.
and that's pretty much it. You can't jump, you can't climb,
You
and
can't even slide down the
it's
slides.
all yeah. So that was the thing, is I finally got to the top of slides and my kids saw it and they're like, "Go down the slide, go!" I'm like, "I can't. I can't." They're like, my kids like, "Jump!" I'm like, I can't." So I'm like, "I'm sorry to disappoint you.
Oh
There's
man.
no portal to the other side." And it's very much it's meant to be creepy because the void, the empty, it's like the negative space. It is just all sterile tiling, the no real sound, just the echoes of your footsteps. And then when you do hear something, it's meant to be more unsettling. And that's, occasionally they have some weird things here and there. You'll come across like a ball pit or something like that with a bunch of just giant uh, giant inflatable balls, like you're talking about, like 6 foot tall orbs
Yeah.
of yellow smiley faces that are just meant to be creepy. And every now and then you walk somewhere and like one will roll in front of you, and it's meant to be like offsetting, yeah. Uh, so it's just, it only happened like once or twice, but it's meant to just be creepy there. Or if you're wandering through an area, you round a corner and there it is, just smiling at you. So there's it's just more of a spatial awareness kind of game. And I think it even gives a warning in the beginning to like just try to pay attention to your surroundings and kind of go slow or something like that.
Yeah,
So I was curious,
like one of the
how
things.
was your game? Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, how was it that how did you choose to play this game? Did you quickly check? Like, was there a format that you went through? Because I quickly came to a personal understanding of how I was going to play the game, and I'm like, I don't care if this is right or wrong, but this is what I'm sticking. Like, I committed to I went and made a decision, committed to it, and like this is it. So I wasn't sure how like you ended up figuring out how you played.
So I don't really know if this counts as like a spoiler.
Okay, spoilers from here on,
So
because we're going to talk
so
about
but because it's
the
not
few
like a
things that happen
story
in the game.
spoiler, but like a gameplay spoiler because so from
What you
here on,
do
yeah.
is an option. It's up to you to choose.
Yeah.
So anything from here is just considered like game, because it's only a couple hour long episode, and so anything, yeah, just
Yeah.
be warned.
So I started to play it and being kind of familiar with like the back rooms and some of the stuff that this is sort of based off of. I was like, okay, and I started going and I I fairly quickly, maybe within the first 30 minutes, I figured out that backtracking was not something that the game wanted me to do or needed me to do. And I think that I was right about this, but basically I was like, because I was looking around at some of the walls and some of the geometry, and I started to kind of play, video game developer programmer, and I was like, hang on a second, so this geometry doesn't make sense. So like whenever you go into a room, if you backtrack and then there's another door and you go into that room and then that hallway, it's like, well, that hallway goes into where that open space should be, but it's not there. And I was like, okay, I think I see what's going on here. So I was like, okay, so and it also, I noticed that it didn't matter which way I turned or whatever. I wouldn't loop back really. I wouldn't come back to where I was. The game, I'm pretty sure I figured out that the game was like, just keep going forward and we are going to load the next room based on how far you've come forward. And so I was like, okay. And so I just started to just go forward. I was like, that looks kind of interesting. And I'd go toward that. And then a new kind of area would appear. And then I'd go toward the next thing and a new kind of area would appear. And I did that over and over and over again until I found basically the end of the first level. And and I'll put it like that. So that
Well,
was
since we're spoiling stuff, uh,
yeah, go ahead.
I'll tell you how I ended up running into the game. So, at first, I was trying to explore the main landing, without because it gives you the option to go up flights of stairs or go. I was trying to hit the ground level, and I noticed there was some mirroring going on. Like some certain rooms would look similar. Eventually, what I chose to do is after about 20 minutes, half hour maybe, I just started going up. That was the thing is it's like I'm going to continuously go up until I can hit a peak. Because the thing is you don't under the game doesn't explain to you if it's a set map or if it is randomly generated. I went under the assumption that it's a set map. There is a floor plan. Uh, I think I'm just going to say this now. I think it's a sphere. I'm not 100% sure though. 'Cause I do know that eventually, later on in the upper floors, I ended up or even and in the basement floors, I ended up finding looping back to certain ways. I would go there might be you'd
Oh,
find a room with certain doors. Like, okay, here I am, and there's two gateways in front of me and a gateway to my right. I'm coming in at the bottom left, and so I explored forward and then like forward and to the right. I ended up coming out where I came out in the same room, but to the back right. I'm like, oh, so somehow or another, due to the other decisions, they're like random decisions, I came back to this room, and so there was a couple times where that happened. Um, Eventually, going up high enough, there was a handful of like early on in the very beginning, like main landing, real quick, you find a black door, and it tells you to have a flashlight. You need a flashlight when you walk in.
it's part of the game
And
teaching you,
I
yeah.
yeah, so what I did is I turned around. First thing I did is you walk forward, it's pitch black, you can't see anything. So then you turn around, see the light coming from the door, and then you walk backwards. And I hit a wall. And I did that with there was a couple other rooms. You'll see just a door open with like a yield sign. And every time I would walk into that, walking backwards, and I'd hit a wall. I couldn't go any further backwards. Eventually, you go high. For me, I went high enough. I found a flashlight. They had a radio uh, music indicator. Some rooms would have music, you don't know why, so it gives it a creepy vibe. You're not really sure if there's something special to this room. Like one of them was like a cathedral, like archway. I was walking across a bridge. There's big panes of window light coming in, and it had like just a cathedral ambiance and like playing some tone. I'm like, that's interesting. Later on, I wound up way higher up on a ledge. I was able to kind of see down like, oh, that was the bridge I walked on before, and I'm still hearing that music. And later on, I'm pretty sure I was below that area because the music was still the same. And but yeah, I heard the radio, found the flashlight, and then it's like, so I was like, okay, now I got to find those doors. I found a brand new door. Instead of trying to backtrack, it was just easier for me to just keep on walking forward. But from the flashlight, as I'm walking through, you find every now and then you'll find weird objects. Like I found a what looked like a Greek aqueduct or something like that, just in the middle of a circle, and it had 3 points of entrance. It had the one I came from, one adjacent, completely adjacent, and then a third one, the one to the side. So every time not every time, but a lot of times when I came to a T intersection, I would always take the lower part of the T is kind of what my mentality was because I'm like, all right, if things are looping back or if they're mirroring, if I'm coming in from the right and there's a door right in front of me, I will then take either the south or the north entrance, and just to go different instead of potentially hitting another set of rooms that are mirroring. And then occasionally I'd backtrack a little bit. But what I did was I finally found my first spot where I needed to actually squat because there was like squatting was pointless in this game for the most part up until that point. And then I finally found a low entrance in the water. So I'm standing, and the water's always shallow. So I just stand. I squatted, walked in, and then I'm seeing this. I can't remember the trophy I got, but it's just like essentially it's a uh, what looks like a squid tentacle without the suction cups, and I got a trophy for it. And it had some sort of flavored caption under it saying like something that keeps you up at night or something that makes you think or something, which made me think of like, and it kind of had a weird noise or ambiance to that, which made me think of like eldritch horror kind of thing because it was just a random statue in the middle of nowhere. Uh,
Mm.
and nothing could be done. It was just there. But eventually, I found a random closet with the exclamation point. Uh, and then I shine my light in there, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's a door. So I think it's one of those things that without the flashlight, it doesn't trigger the events, and then you walk down a seemingly endless staircase, and then you wind up in the second half of this level, which is all in the dark. Um, and it was interesting because as I explored that area, it's like it was seemingly endless. Like you come to these areas where it's just nothing but archways. Just but you
Yeah.
can see a wall at one section. So I just kind of went. I literally would go up and to the right, forward and right, one forward and right, one like through these archways, and then eventually I'd hit somewhere to the point where I saw my first exit sign, but it was on a level that I couldn't get to, and I'm like, because it's a glowing green sign,
Oh yes,
you
yes.
know, yeah. So I was like, okay. Uh, Eventually when you get like I forgot one of these endless archway rooms, I actually heard like a ticking noise, like a certain. So I walked very meticulous until I could hear. You were able to hear where it got stronger and when it got weaker, and then I finally got to the spot where it was like the strongest, but I saw nothing. Turns out later on, I eventually got that was the exit, but I was like a floor above or beneath. I actually don't know because I worked my way. When I got to the final exit, you could hear that same noise in the background. I'm like, oh, okay. So I was able to work my way around. And when you got to the final exit, there was actually when you walk towards the exit, you turn around, there's four archways, which means there's four different paths that could have gotten you there.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So I think it was like I said, I don't think it was randomly generated. I think it was planned out, but I think it's also just crazily massive for the map size. But because it's the only thing that's there is occasional like slides, some water, some balls, and some like little figurines of people. Like they look like Ditto from Pokemon, just like a little pop up mole with eyes. There's very little anything there, so you
Yeah.
can because you have no geometry on some ferns or something. So you could just use up all your memory just to making endless blank maps, and then every now and then you had like, oh, this is a color change. This color went from a white room to a blue room to a greenish room. I'm making progress, so that's
Yeah.
kind of what was my guide. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't know if you could, from the end of the level, go back to the beginning of the level. I think that, I mean, obviously you can backtrack a little bit
I
and you could.
backtracked a lot.
Okay.
I certain swaths
So
I was
you.
able to
Okay.
backtrack because, and then also like for example, there was towards the end there was a gap. There was like a essentially it was a two sides of an upper level, and so there's a gap in the middle. You had a bunch of archways on left and the right, and so it's just like it just seemed randomly. Like I don't know which one to pick. I'm just gonna randomly go to the right here. Archway number three, and then you can see okay, three and two are connected because it's in the backside. But then there was another door,
Yeah, I mean,
stuff like that.
but I mean, like backtracking a lot in a certain area is different than from backtracking like way like actually far distance. You know what I'm saying? So
I don't
I'm
know if you can go back up the stairs. I
yeah,
don't the initial stairs that brought you down. I'm not 100% sure, and I'm actually curious how many stairs go down because once again, it's like I did back up into those, and it wasn't until you had the flashlight. I'm pretty sure the flashlight is the magic like key
yeah,
that unlocks like that backspace,
yeah,
which is a good camera trick because just uh it just appears creepily, and you're like, oh wow, it's just kind of bland and jarring and no fanfare. So
and so
it's
I
like a horror movie where you just you look down the hallway and then just something just is standing there. You're just like, and there's a stair. So like, okay, I was in this space just a second ago. Nothing existed. Um,
and
but
now
yeah, it's I ended up coming back looping to certain that whole that one area with a bunch of archways. I remember going about a bunch of ways, coming out and like coming out to a completely different thing, like a Benny Hill scene. I'm like, oh wait, okay, so I'm here now. I'm gonna backwards go. I'm gonna double back, but instead go a different way. And then I came around. I came out in a different area. I'm like, all right, I'm in the same archway area, but I'm different. But I'm at a completely different angle. So it was kind of neat. It was one of the things that like I felt early on. I'm like, I kind of wish, and I knew it was going to be pointless to graph paper this out. I
mm,
just wanted
yeah,
to see how crazy because it's like an Escher painting, right? It's like
yeah.
you expect to go up the stairs and turn around upside down almost.
Yeah, and I want to say like if you're listening to this and we're making this sound interesting, I think that you should think again because there's a lot. I mean, the point of the game is, to me at least, is to create. It's so weird to say this, but to create a sense of boredom, but like like a Cthulhu type boredom or like existential type boredom. It's like, what if like, because that's the thing with like the back rooms or whatever, is that you're basically no clipping out of reality, and you'll never get hungry, you'll never get old, you'll never die. You just wander around in this infinity of boredom, and that's sort of the horror, the eldritch horror, I guess, aspect of that. Um, so so yeah, it is a lot of you're just walking, like it's a walking simulator from hell, kind of, where you're just walking and there's seemingly nothing that's happening, but the game has to make something happen eventually, or else you'll just put it down and be like, I'm done with this. So yeah,
It
um,
feels like a psychological test is what it
yes,
is. It feels like it's a case study to see how people react, uh, eh, and question themselves. Because at a certain point, you're like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going the right way? Should I double back? How am I gonna, like, what is
yes,
the best route? Because like at a certain point, I was just like, I was very much committed to going up as high as I can,
hmm
and eventually I was like, okay, every time there's a T intersection, I will go, it's a capital T, so I'm gonna go whatever way is intersecting that line. So that's the way I would go generally. And then sometimes I'd find my way double back to certain key locations. I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, I'm gonna try this other way. And it very much tests your patience, and it does get very monotonous, and you're expecting something to happen, but eventually you're like, I don't think anything's gonna happen.
no,
And then it'll do some weird flavor thing of like I was walking in the dark and all of a sudden uh out of nowhere, this giant smiley face appears at the end of a tunnel, just like spooks you, and then it just kind of rolls out of the way when you walk forward. Um,
yeah.
or like I was walking through the archways, this infinite like thing of archways it feels, and then I'm looking each way because I'm like doing compass directions because like you can sometimes see walls and you can sometimes not, and then all of a sudden I walk through an archway, turn, all of a sudden there's just a smiley face there. I'm like, oh Jesus. Uh,
There were a lot of times where I would shine my flashlight or look kind of fast down a hallway or something and think that I saw something move, but I would look again and it wouldn't be moving. It'd be like a statue or whatever, and it wouldn't be moving. And I'd be like, wow, I just freaked myself out. And it's like the whole point is that there's like nothing here, you know? Um,
It
but
also helps that it's doing it with a filter, 'cause the grain filter is supposed to be a VHS, like, the whole concept is you're watching this through a VHS camera,
right.
because you can zoom out, it has that constant graininess, so when you're looking at a dark image, it's not flat dark, it has the aperture of your camera trying to filter the lens, and so because it's like a digital thing, if you turn too quickly or as you're walking in or zooming forward, the, um the aperture of the light kind of flickers and
Mhm.
plays with it, and they're like, "Oh, there's something there," and then it turns out it's just a fern or something like that, and you're like, "Okay."
Yeah. The other thing is I wanted to ask, how much did you run in this level?
After about, I would say at least over half an hour to, 40 minutes, I remembered, I'm like, I went through because I quickly looked at the, control scheme in the beginning, and then I remembered, I'm like, "There is a toggle system for running." And so I'm like, so I toggled that, and then I just went tap, and I ran because I was running the entire time. Or at first I was walking a little bit, but then I just you had to hold, I think it was L1 to run, and I was tired of holding it. So when I figured out you could toggle it, I just kept that thing toggled all the time. And then anytime I had the chance to walk in water or walk along the water path, I always stayed on the
On the path,
ledge
yeah.
and not in the water because you can't run in the water, but you can run next to it. So
Right. Okay. I
I ran all the time.
okay, well then okay. So that kind of breaks my theory at least about the first one. I didn't really run very much in the first one. Um and when you play the second one, the second level, let me know because I have a I don't know. I think there's some different stuff in the second one, and I'm feel like I should have been done with it by now, but I'm not. And anyway, so we'll probably talk about that later. But yeah, so anyway, uh, yeah, so that's
Yeah, Dream Core, really weird. Possibly like kind of boring, and more of a self study on your how much tolerance and patience do you have, and
yeah. I mean,
so,
you should think about this game as like not something that you're gonna like actively have hee hee ha ha fun with. You should think of it as like a. I mean, if I was gonna tell people like you should think of it like sort of like a mental challenge, and in a way, and that it's gonna mess with you in a way that you're not really even sure you're being messed with, but it takes. I don't know. That's how I would approach it.
it's a good game to play by yourself and without extra stimulus either. So like I
Yes.
would say don't play this as a podcast game. Don't have something to you want your undivided attention on it. Though it sounds really monotonous, but it's like the idea of like whenever you see a movie and there's a like an astronaut in space floating by themselves or walking by themselves and all you hear is the sound of their breath and like the void the expanse of space.
Yeah.
That's kind of this. It's like you're just by yourself, you're hearing your footsteps. That way, whenever you do hear a noise, it's that much heightened. Uh, but once again, think of it's more of an art piece than it is a game.
Yes.
I guess is
It's
the best way to
yes.
come into it.
That's the best, probably best way to think about it is like an art experience rather than like a capital G game sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm most definitely gonna try the Cerberia map. I just haven't had a chance this last week, so we'll probably come back to this later. So Nick, what else have you been playing?
Yes, I got a chance to play Res Infinite on PSVR 2, um, finally. And Res is a game I've heard about a lot over the years. I remember Jeff Gerstmann talking about it on Giant Bomb years ago, talking about how great it was. I think probably when Infinite came out, but maybe before it came out on VR. Maybe not though. I can't remember. But anyway, he was always like talking about how great it is, and I just always kind of heard about it. So I saw that you had it and on PSVR 2, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try that, and so I did. Yeah, Res. One of the first things I thought about it was like how it's like so crazy that this game after all these years still feels like I'm playing a video game from the future. And maybe it's just because of my 90s growing up in the 90s aesthetic and that ridiculously dumb simplistic uh, idea of cyberspace and VR is just ingrained in my brain.
It's the lawnmower man, is what it is. It's
Yes,
like
yes, it's the Lawnmower Man exactly, and it's just because I've seen Lawnmower Man, I guess more than once. That is sort of just ingrained in my brain, but it from that aspect, the game is really cool. It's not very long, obviously, but there's like an Area X that they added as well, which I haven't got a chance to play. But I did beat the main like part of the game. I think that the VR aspect or the hand like the hand controls instead of a single controller or pointing with just your hand kind of breaks the game because it seemed to be a lot easier than I thought it would be because I was just able to like aim and just which was really cool in some ways, but I felt like I was cutting through more of it than maybe I should have. Anyway, it was still really fun, but I was kind of like maybe I should go back and try to play this with just a controller. And because I imagine that aiming would be a lot more difficult if that were the case. But yeah, really cool idea. I mean, obviously the music is based off of your clicking and stuff to some degree, which makes it really interesting that they kind of figured that out. And I was kind of like, man, it would have been cool to have maybe more of this game kind of fleshed out or like a copy game that kind of iterated and took it further in some different other direction. But yeah, really, really cool game. I'm glad I finally got to experience it.
Yeah, it's you know, 'cause I mentioned it, I forget, a while ago
Yeah.
when I came across it. It is very much an easier game uh in VR. But it's more of a it makes it way more chill and way more just a relaxed vibe kind of because you're enjoying the music, you're having a good time. You don't have to, you're not stressing about, you know, dying essentially because it's pretty much an insta kill in the PSVR 2, like just being able to highlight all the enemies and just fire right away. It's it kind of became more of importance to I need to collect everything, you know. But
Oh yeah.
uh, the Area X is awesome. I when I first played it the first time through, I ended up getting the alternate ending, which I'm like, oh, that's cool. I don't know how I did it, and I don't know what the original ending is because it was my first time playing it, but I got the alternate ending. It's like 'cause I got the trophy for it, and I was just like the. I kind of wish they had updated it with more of you know, the story is written in very small text speeding by on the left side. So if you're not even paying attention, if you're just, you know, just kind of staring into the distance, you're like, oh wait, that text coming in is not just style, just like gibberish. It's like, oh, that's actual. There's something there to be because it's more or less
It's written
the
like,
story is
I
like
mean, it was written like
AI
code being
gone rogue.
downloaded to like whenever you're in the command prompt and you click, you know, execute or you type execute or whatever, and it goes and it loads the program and it's telling you what it's doing. Like that's exactly like it. And it's cool. It's very cool. I saw some things in there that I was like, okay, that is sort of relevant or whatever, but I didn't realize that there was like a whole story going on that was specific and real in there. It's kind of wild.
Yeah. It's funny because as you're playing, you just can't help but bob to the music and
It's good.
just kinda
It's
it's
really
a good
good.
time. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this was, what's it, Tetsuya, was it Mizuguchi? The person who did, Space Channel 5, back in the day, and then ended up, more recently doing, they did, PSP's Luminous, which was, like, I think a launch game, which it like, kind of game changer for that kinda space, but then also did, Tetris Effect.
Ooh, okay.
So yeah, so this is all the same kind of lineage, and you can kind of see like, all right, very much ingrained into their soul the idea of music and rhythm and just vibing and matching. So for sure, if you haven't, I don't think you had a chance yet. Totally check out Tetris Effect. You have access to it through my library.
Oh, okay.
It's yeah, it's oh, actually, you might not. Nope, you don't because I actually have a physical version of that game.
Oh, okay.
I paid for it was a PSVR one. I $10 to upgrade. So yeah, Tetris Effects is an awesome experience. Equally, uh, and only better in PSVR two with you know the quality of the colors and stuff with the OLED screen and the better resolution.
Dang, I'm gonna have to get that
But
then.
every map is different in Tetris Effect. Every time you move the pieces, different depending on the map, they'll make a different sound effect. So they make a sound effect as you do it, or as you drop, as you connect, or like you know take out a line. So it's a lot of fun, and it's more of a yeah, it's very much a like a trippy piece kind of thing. So yeah, I recommend anything this guy does, and totally worth picking up. Even in, or at least with Tetris and Res. I mean, granted, Res is a flat screen game as well. By far easier and more fun in VR. Uh, Tetris Effect is really cool flat screen as well. So you don't even if you don't have VR, totally take a look at Tetris Effect. Um, it's just a fun, chill experience.
Yeah.
Not as like anxiety driven in my opinion as like OG Tetris. That music is great, but it makes you it kind of gets the heart pumping. This one was for me it was not as bad. I mean, they have tough levels, don't get me wrong, but it's still a very cool thing. All right. Well, if you made it this far, we appreciate it. I mean, this has been ADP episode 117. Nick, what are some words of wisdom you got for the people out there?
Um, you know, make sure that you have um something green because there's an important day coming up where you're gonna want to wear green.
Yeah, and then if anyone touches you, just you know, sue them for harassment, and then you get more green because lawsuits. Okay, great.
Yes,
Uh,
contact your lawyer.
America is great that way, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Contact your
All
love.
right, guys. Until next time, y'all take it easy.
Bye.